Well, it's 2025 and Paul McCartney is back on the road. His several years long Got Back tour has now got back to the United States. I was able to catch the show last weekend in Atlanta on November 2nd and 3rd, and on the 2nd I purchased the Hot Sound package, so I'll be talking a lot about that. For those of you who don't know, Hot Sound is a VIP experience that Paul McCartney sells that includes priority entry into the arena, preferred seating during the show, dinner and drinks before the show begins, a swag bag, and the hot ticket item for me was access to Paul's Soundcheck before the show. Now, for the Hot Sound package, we were instructed to be at the arena no later than 4 p.m., so I left my hotel extra early just to be safe, and I walked across Atlanta's Olympic Park towards State Farm Arena. On the way there, I met Ray and Barbara, two amazing Beatles fans from Delaware who'd come in for the show, and they'd been to a number of Paul's soundchecks and concerts, so they kind of took me under their wings for the experience. We waited in line for a little while, and shortly after 3:30, the doors opened and they let us inside. The check-in process was pretty smooth. We went through security, and then they validated our government IDs to make sure that we were actually the ones who bought the Hot Sound package. After that, they gave us wristbands, scanned our tickets in the Ticketmaster app, and loaded us into elevators to go up to the VIP reception. At the reception, they had alcoholic drinks and soft drinks available to us, as well as some photo opportunities. And at the reception, I met Mary and Linda, who kind of joined up with us and spent the rest of the experience with us. A little after 4:30, they let us know it would soon be time to head down to the sound check, and this is where the fun began. We walked into State Farm Arena, and it was almost completely empty except for Paul's crew, some security personnel, and us. We sat down and waited for a little while, and Paul arrived around 5:30. He addressed us and said hello, which was a lot of fun, and then he had an on-stage meeting with the band. During this time, I was fortunate to see MJ Kim, Paul's photographer, walking around the arena. He came over and we chatted about photography for a little while, and he took this selfie with me. I've been a long-time admirer of his work, so it was a great honor to meet him. About a week before the concert, I got an email with my soundcheck instructions, and they let us know that there wouldn't be any video recording or audio recording of any kind. But they also said there wouldn't be any texting allowed during the soundcheck, so I made sure to bring this piece of paper from my hotel so I could write down the songs that Paul did. So Paul always starts his soundchecks with an instrumental jam that lasts 5 to 10 minutes, and it was really amazing to see Paul and his band improvising and coming up with music on the spot right before us. After that, he did Honey Don't, Honey Hush, Can't Buy Me Love, Magical Mystery Tour, Women and Wives, Let 'Em In, From Me to You, Every Night, Ram On, a little bit of Big Barn Bed, just a snippet of it on the ukulele, Midnight Special, New, and Lady Madonna. When I was growing up, Can't Buy Me Love was always my favorite Beatles song, so to get to see Paul do that at a soundcheck with only like 200 other people there was incredible. And then they did Magical Mystery Tour, which, if you didn't know, Paul's been touring with this trio called the Hot City Horns, and they played all the horn parts for the song live. It sounded amazing, and Paul needs to put this song back in the live set. I've recently become a big fan of Paul's song Every Night after seeing the MTV Unplugged show that he did. So to get to hear him do that at the sound check after many years was incredible. The last time I saw him do that was in 2002. So for the 2025 Got Back tour, I painted a jacket to wear to the shows, and it's got the Magic Piano design on the back of it. So when the Magic Piano was wheeled out for Paul to play New, I couldn't resist an opportunity to get a photo of him in the background. After the soundcheck, they let us know that the merch tables were open for us, so I went upstairs and grabbed the Atlanta-specific poster and the tour poster, both of which are hanging behind me, and I also bought the tour program at that time as well. Side note, I was thumbing through the tour program, and this photo, which is the last one, it's a centerfold photo, was taken in May of 2022, the first leg of the Got Back tour. So it's really cool to have this and be able to say, like, I'm there. I'm a speck, but I'm in there. At this point, I was hungry, and luckily for me, it was time for dinner. So I went upstairs, helped myself to the buffet. Now, while we were eating dinner, I turned to Ray, Barbara, Linda, and Mary, and I said to them, this was absolutely worth the money, and the concert hasn't even started yet. And at this point, it was time for us to get our swag bags. The bag itself can kind of be considered a swag item. It says Paul McCartney Got Back on it. Inside the bag, we got this commemorative ticket that has our show date on it and, of course, says Paul McCartney Got Back. We also got this tin of mints that says Paul McCartney Got Back. We got this keychain that says Paul McCartney Got Back. We got this backpack that, of course, says Paul McCartney Got Back. And we got this lithograph that has our show date on it and, of course, says Paul McCartney Got Back. After dinner, I headed down to my seat. The energy in the room was electric by this point. The pre-show video had started and everybody was just waiting to see Paul McCartney. At about 8:17, 8:18, somewhere in there, the lights went down, Paul's Hofner bass came on the screen, surrounded by fireworks, and Paul and the band took to the stage. I have to say that Help followed by Coming Up is a fantastic way to open a show. It really set the tone for what the concert was going to be. And as if that wasn't enough, the next song he played was Got to Get You Into My Life, with the Hot City Horns playing that blazing horn intro. New to the Got Back tour, at least to me this year, is the fact that they're using frames and graphics on the screens on the outside that usually show Paul and the band. They use them during Maybe I'm Amazed. But my favorite use of them was during I've Just Seen the Face, where they had the Cavern Club backdrop on the center screen, and they put Paul and the band on archways on either side. One of my favorite moments from the 2025 Got Back tour is that Paul is telling the story of the time that the Beatles showed up in Jacksonville, Florida in 1964 to a show that was supposed to be segregated.
We said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, the black people sit on one side, the white people sit on the other side." We said, "Well, that's just stupid." Anyway, we said, "Okay, well, we're not playing the gig. Forget it." And I think, there's too much money involved, so he said, "Okay," and they did, they integrated it. And years later, I met a girl, a young black girl who had been at the show, and she was now grown up. She was actually like a history professor. But she said it was great. She said, because I've never sat with white people before. And she said, but it didn't matter, because we were all just screaming at the Beatles.
He did Now and Then, which was my first time seeing that song performed live. And I loved the visuals with them using the Now and Then music video, as well as photos from Paul's Eyes of the Storm exhibition. This concert experience was really fun because there were other Hot Sound people that were with me who'd been to the Soundcheck and been at dinner. So I really got to know them, and it was nice because I was there technically by myself, but it was great to have other people around me who'd shared the same experience earlier. In addition, I really tried to stay laser focused on Paul and the band. I was only 8 rows back, which is pretty close, and to be able to see Paul and his band making music up close was incredible. And then Paul McCartney exploded. Paul does the song Live and Let Die during his shows, and it's absolutely incredible to see all kinds of pyrotechnics up close, especially when you're in an indoor arena. And then it was magic piano time again. I once read online that somebody said that singing Hey Jude with Paul McCartney live on stage has got to be one of the most cathartic things that anybody can do, and they're absolutely right. So here's a picture of me singing my heart out with Paul McCartney. Paul closes his show with The End, and during that song he plays his left-handed 1960 Sunburst Les Paul. There weren't many Sunburst Les Pauls made between 1958 and 1960, and they're still some of the most desirable guitars in the world. And during the guitar solo battle of the end, Paul played his Burst, Brian played an Ebony Block SG, and Rusty played a Flame Top 335. After Paul left the stage and the lights came back up, I happened to look across the room and I saw my friend Jude, who I had originally met in an online class back in 2021. It was great to meet her in person, and we chatted for a while.
End of part 1. Intermission. End of intermission. Part 2.
Now here's the thing. My new friends, Mary, Linda, Ray, and Barbara, who I'd met earlier that day, they were kind of being a bad influence, and they told me I should just buy a ticket online and come to the next night's show. So I absolutely jumped at the chance to see Paul McCartney 2 nights in a row. The set list was the same, but the way he interacted with the audience was a bit different, and that made the show unique. But here's a few other things that I noticed. The pre-show playlist is incredible. I never really paid that much attention to it before because it's the music that's playing while you're waiting to see a real live Beatle. But to hear songs like Twist and Shout, I Wanna Be Your Man, and Mrs. Vanderbilt playing as you're getting excited to see Paul McCartney really sets the tone for the concert. I love this moment at the end of Got to Get You Into My Life where they use the Beatles rock band graphics. Since I was sitting further back, I found myself watching the lights, the lasers, and the screens a lot more this time. And I was really astounded at all the things that Paul's team is able to do. He really has the best people working his shows. So at the end of Let Me Roll It, Paul always sticks on a little bit of Foxy Lady, which is a Jimi Hendrix song, and they just kind of jam to that. And after that, he uses it as an opportunity to tell a story about Jimmy from the 1960s. And the funny thing was, in Atlanta, he got interrupted both nights during that story. The first night, somebody yelled out, "I love you, Paul!" And he kind of looked and he said, "I'm telling a story." And we all laughed at that. We thought it was hilarious. But then somebody yelled out, "I love you, Paul," during the same moment in the second night. I'm pretty sure it had to have been the same guy. And Paul said, "I'm telling a bloody story." And everybody laughed, and he kind of looked out at the audience, and he said, "There's one in every show." I really like this moment during Let 'Em In, where they mirror the trombonist on the screen. So a fan favorite moment from during the show is when Paul takes a minute to read the signs that people have brought. And he always makes the joke that, he's up there and he's trying to think of the chords and remember the words, and he's getting distracted like, oh, there's a sign there. Maybe I should read it, but no, just concentrate.
But then there's another bit of your mind that says, yeah, go and read them. It doesn't matter. Okay. This one says, "Would you please sign my arm?" And one over here says, "Sign my butt." Sign my butt. And that's going too far.
And then he started to introduce the next song, which was supposed to be In Spite of All the Danger, but he started to introduce Love Me Do and accidentally skipped a song. One of the guys in the band let him know what he had done, and he said,
"It's the signs. I said I'd blame the signs, and I'm blaming you."
I love this kick during Love Me Do. I mentioned the lasers before. One of my favorite uses of them was during Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Now here's a picture of what that moment looked like from the first night when I was 8 rows back, and then here's a video of what that looked like on the second night from further back. I'm not saying that either of these is better than the other, but it certainly makes for a different viewing experience. Now and Then was moving even the second time around. I really like this part where they put a picture of John on one screen and they put a picture of George on the other. One other thing that I noticed is that after the show the first night, they played No More Lonely Nights, and after the show the second night, they played Ebony and Ivory. Both iconic McCartney compositions, but it made me wonder, who chooses this music that gets played after the show and why does it get chosen? I also wonder how many different songs are played after the show.
End of part 2.
All in all, this experience was incredible. Getting to see Paul McCartney 2 nights in a row is something I'll never forget. During night 2, I often found myself turning around and watching people watching Paul McCartney. And it wasn't lost on me that this man's music has been part of our culture for over 60 years now. The Hot Sound VIP experience was incredible. The food was good. The company was great. Soundcheck provided us about an hour of extra music. If you ever have the opportunity to do the Hot Sound package and you've been on the fence about it before, I highly recommend it. I'm grateful that Paul continues to tour, and I hope I get the opportunity to see him again really soon.